Township Parsippany-Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting of May 14, 2013.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirement of the Open Public Meeting Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building on December 10, 2012, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in both the Daily Record on December 14, 2012, and the Star Ledger on December 13, 2012. And it was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers and local radio stations on December 10, 2012. In addition, adequate notice of this location change of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building on March 12, 2013. Where it has remained continuously posted. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on March 13, 2013, with the location changes for the specific meeting dates. Note, due day and time, council meeting are videotaped and aired on cable public access channel 21 at 12 p.m. on Sundays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Here.
Mr. DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Council President Stanton.
Here, also present, Mayor Barbario, Jasmine Lim, Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, Yancy Wazirmas, Township Clerk. Please rise for the flag salute. Mr. DiPiero, if you would.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Township Attorney John Inglesino.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I have a statement that I would like to read. It relates to the Valori matter. I'd like each of you to imagine how you would feel if somebody deliberately, with malice and forethought, manufactured a big lie about you. Not just any lie, but an accusation that you committed a crime, the crime of bribery. How would you feel if that lie was spread all over the newspapers and the internet, damaging your name and your reputation? Think about how you would feel. And the lie is not just told once, but told over and over, again and again. Think of all the aspects of your life that would be turned upside down. It's like a big dark cloud hovering over every aspect of your life. Your family, your children, your business relationships are all affected. If you can imagine that, then you can only begin to imagine what Mayor Barbario, Council President Stanton, and I have been living with these past 2.5 months. Tonight, Lou Valori's big lie is exposed. On March 3rd, 2013, the Pats broke news of Valori's big lie. The Pats reporter gave considerable credibility to Mr. Valori, even though he presented no evidence whatsoever to support his lie. Not once has the Pats or any other news agency challenged Mr. Valori to provide any evidence to support his allegation. They just printed Valori's big lie as if it were true, and then put the burden on us to prove it didn't happen. The story was quickly picked up by other news agencies, and before long, Valori's big lie was front page news, just as he planned. His accusation was very straightforward. Valori claimed he was offered a town job to keep him out of this year's council race. In other words, Valori claimed he was bribed. A very serious allegation. Mayor Barbario and Council President Stanton immediately offered strong statements refuting Valori's outlandish claim. To Valori and others of similar character, you don't just tell little lies. You tell big lies. Why? Because people tend to believe the big lie. It plays into their natural cynicism about government and elected officials. And unfortunately, many of our nation's elected officials have given the public good reason to be cynical. Bad people, like Lou Valori, prey on that cynicism to lie about good, decent public service. Valori was not content simply having his big lie play out in the press as a he said, she said. No, in order to give his big lie credibility, he knew that he had to up the ante. So Valori demanded an investigation, and then he took to the microphones to announce that the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office was investigating the mayor, the council president, and the township attorney. Valori's big lie was proceeding according to plan, but Valori made a big miscalculation. More on that in a moment. On Monday, April 1st, 2013, the township received a grand jury subpoena issued by the Superior Court of New Jersey, Somerset County. That subpoena compelled production of certain specific documents from the town clerk. The subpoena also contained a non-disclosure provision. This was the first official notice indicating that Valori had succeeded in initiating a criminal investigation. Personally, I anticipated that Valori would announce his lies to this level. After all, he is a former police officer trained in initiating and conducting investigations. He knew how to get the ball rolling. I informed council members of the situation and advised them to remain silent on the Valori matter to comply with the subpoena. So the record is clear. My motivation in quelling a certain resident's questions at the April 2nd council meeting had nothing to do with free speech. My purpose was to ensure compliance with the subpoena and to protect every member on this dais from the charge that they somehow interfered with a criminal investigation. I know the resident didn't know that at the time. Indeed, I was not at liberty to tell her then what I just shared with all of you now. In the future, I ask for some deference when I give advice or direction at a meeting. I can assure you my purpose is always to protect the township's interest, even if that interest may not always be directly apparent. As many of you know, representatives of the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office came to Parsippany-Troy Hills Town Hall to obtain subpoena documents. I want to emphasize that every Parsippany employee involved in this matter fully cooperated with the prosecutor's office. However, I do want to clarify one inaccuracy reported in the press. The Patch reported that representatives of the prosecutor's office were actually in the mayor's office and spoke with the mayor in the municipal building. That report is not accurate. After receiving the subpoena, the mayor, council president, and I all retained attorneys at our sole cost and expense. Our attorneys advised us that we were under no obligation to speak with the prosecutor's office. We were reminded that the prosecutor's office had the burden of proof if it sought to bring charges. We were also advised that anything we said could be used against us. But we knew there was only one way to clear our names and to expose Valori's big lie, and that was to subject ourselves to questioning by the prosecutor's office and to fully cooperate with it in every way. After all, we had nothing to hide. Each of us appeared separately at the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office for questioning. We were all questioned under oath. We answered each and every question asked thoroughly and to the best of our ability. We fully cooperated with every request made by the prosecutor's office. That is where Mr. Valori miscalculated. He never thought we would cooperate with the prosecutor's office. He never thought we would voluntarily subject ourselves to questioning under oath, and he never thought the prosecutor's office would conclude its investigation before June 4. Mr. Valori was wrong, he miscalculated, and now his lie is exposed. After a thorough review of Valori's allegation, the Somerset County's prosecutor's office has vindicated the mayor, council president, and I from any wrongdoing and has closed its investigation of this matter. By letter dated May 9, 2013, the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office concluded that based on various evidence reviewed, which included interviews, documents, and a, quote, surreptitious recording made by Mr. Valori, close quote, that a, quote, criminal prosecution in this matter is not viable, close quote. The prosecutor's office also further advised that, quote, further criminal investigation is not warranted in this matter, and as a result, this case has been closed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a letter of exoneration. This matter has been thoroughly investigated by an independent, highly respected law enforcement agency. They have concluded that Mr. Valori's charge has no merit. Mayor Barbario's public comments on this matter have been completely accurate and truthful. Mr. Valori's statements have not. As for why Mr. Valori would go to such an extreme to lie and defame our character, I refer you to the mayor's previous public statements on this matter. Again, the mayor has told the truth. Mr. Valori has lied. For those of you who had doubts about whether Valori's story was true, the prosecutor's letter of vindication makes clear that no wrongdoing occurred. For those of you who believed Mr. Valori's story, you now know that you were fooled and lied to, not by the mayor, not by the council president, or by myself, but by Lou Valori. Tonight, Mr. Valori's lie has nowhere to hide. I hope that members of the press who so gloriously reported Valori's allegations will equally report our vindication. I think the press should also ask Mr. Valori a simple but important question. Are you sorry that you lied? If Mr. Valori does the honorable thing and apologizes for his lie, if he is contrite, if his apology is unequivocal and genuinely remorseful, then I, and I speak only for myself, am willing to turn the page and move on. But if Mr. Valori fails to do the right thing, if he continues this big lie, then I retain the ability to assert my legal rights at a time of my choosing. If there was ever a case of defamation, this is it. Thank you, Mr. Council President. I have, by the way, copies of my statement as well as a copy of the Somerset prosecutor's letter up here for distribution for members of the press or the public, whoever would like a copy.
Council President, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
I want to thank everyone who supported me over these past 2.5 months. Friends, supporters, residents, colleagues, and especially my wife Brenda and my children and my entire family. Your faith and trust in me means more than I could ever express in mere words. I always knew that I would be vindicated of wrongdoing for one simple reason. I did nothing wrong. I am bound by 2 oaths. The first was before God and witnesses at my wedding. The second was when Governor Chris Christie administered me the oath of this office. I placed my hand on the Bible, and I swore to God and the residents of the Township of Parsippany that I would uphold the law. Brenda, my family, and my fellow residents, you should know that I will not break either solemn oath so long as I draw breath on this earth. What I have previously stated was true then and has been proven to be true now. Lou Valori was never offered a job not to run for office. Lou Valori made up this big lie to get back at me for not promoting him. To Louis and his running mate, my opponent, Paul Carifi, this election is about personal revenge. Valori wants revenge because I did not promote him to a job he didn't deserve. And Carifi wants revenge because I wouldn't promote his brother to a job he wasn't eligible to hold. My fellow residents, revenge is not a good reason to run for office. In recent days, the campaign has taken a disturbing turn. Parsippany residents, our residents, have called me. In some cases, they have personally come to my office to tell me that my opponent, Paul Carifi, has knocked on their doors to say they shouldn't vote for me because I'm going to jail. What a disservice to our residents. Just yesterday, Paul Carifi was at the Brookside Senior Center spreading Louis' big lie, lying to our seniors. Mr. Carifi, have you no shame? Mr. Carifi, our residents deserve more from you than perpetuating Mr. Valori's lie. If you would lie to our residents about something as serious as that, how would the people ever know if you were telling the truth? As you know, and I wonder whether Lou Valori acted alone or whether Councilman Karifi is a co-conspirator in Louis' lie. Very shortly after Valori and Karifi announced that they would be forming a ticket, Valori began peddling his lie to the media. Karifi put Valori on his ticket on February 7th. Louis' lie appeared on the patch on March 3rd. So I asked Mr. Karifi, were you part of the plot of Louis' lie? In light of Somerset County's prosecutor's letter of vindication, I call upon my opponent, Councilman Karifi, right here and now, to denounce his running mate, Lou Valori, and to announce he is dropping Valori from his ticket effective immediately. Tonight, I call on Mr. Karifi to join me in sending a clear message to our voters that politics of lies have no place in our election. We in Parsippany are better than that. Will you join me, Mr. Karifi, to finally seek higher grounds, to do the right thing and remove Valori from your ticket? But will you, Mr. Karifi, aid and abet the politics of a lie? Will you continue to deceive our residents with bogus charges and false claims? Well, Mr. Karifi, I am waiting your response.
First off, you make a statement, that I was at the Brookside home yesterday. You did just say that, correct?
Well, it could be yesterday or this week.
Wait, you said,
Please.
yes, you said yesterday that I was there.
Okay, Mr. Karifi, I'm asking you,
Correct?
would you join me? Would
At
you
the
join me?
Brookside, okay, you said that. I
Mr.
was there
Karifi, I'm asking you, will you
yesterday.
join me? Yes or no?
And I'm finishing my statement. Secondly, what's going on here is between you and Mr. Valori, not me. Okay, so for you trying to drag this in, all right, all I can say is I read something that was online today. It was reported in NJ.com, and there appears to be a link in that article that is a conversation between yourself and Mr. Valori that, from what I can hear on there, does talk about a job in the town. So just going based on that article that I read online today in NJ.com, and again, this is something between you and Mr. Valori, not myself. Not myself.
Please
Excuse
don't
me?
talk from the public. Please
said
do
that?
not talk from the public.
So I will not.
Okay, I heard that same recording, by the way, Mr. Karifi, and there was no mention of a job in lieu of not running for council.
Did I say
Okay,
that? Did I say that?
Now I will
Okay,
finish my
listen,
statement.
I just want to cut off. We are not going to
I
have
did not
a
say that.
debate here. All right.
In light of running, in light of what has just transpired and being vindicated and exonerated by the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office, I am moving my campaign forward on issues. We need to mark Parsippany in the right direction. Parsippany is the #1 best place to live in the township, in the state of New Jersey. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by leadership. Council President, members of the public, and council members, thank you for your time.
All right. I wasn't going to comment. I'm gonna. Just bear with me, please. All right, I promise to make this quick. Yeah, you know what I do for a profession? I work for the Morris County Sheriff's Office. In my profession, people make comments. And the comments they make, what you do for a living, being on the SWAT team, they say you need to have eyes in the back of your head. You never know when your enemies are gonna come. And you know something? They were almost correct. But the sad part, you don't need your eyes for your enemies. You need them for your friends, because that's what happened here. It was my friends that stand in the back. It was my friends that lied to tarnish my reputation, the mayor's reputation, and the attorney. And I gotta tell you something, Mr. Valori, you made one mistake, and the mistake was the results came out before the election. And I'll tell you right now, that day you will see the results for what you did and what you did to the people up here. I'm sorry it took time, thank you. At this time, we're gonna be taking a 2-minute recess.
I'll make a motion to reconvene.
Motion by Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. DiPiero, roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, upcoming meeting, 6/11/2013, 7:30 p.m. agenda meeting, public invited, public participation. 6/18/2013, 7:30 p.m. regular meeting, public invited, public participation. We will be back at Town Hall for the next 2 meetings. Okay, presentation. Miss Virginia from the American Cancer Society for Relay of Life of Parsippany.
Hi, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is not Virginia, it's Bonnie Rosenthal. I'm the chairperson of the American Cancer Society Relay for Life of Greater Parsippany, which is going to be occurring on June 8th. First, I'd like to start with an exercise. If you are comfortable, please stand up if you have or had cancer at any time. Please stand up if you are a family member of somebody who has or had cancer at any time. Please stand up if you've ever been a caregiver. That can be a friend, that can be somebody who has driven somebody to treatment, that can be a family member. Please stand up if you've ever known anybody who has cancer. I think you guys get the sense that if you turn around and you look around you, I don't see one person in this audience whose life has not been impacted by cancer. That's why the American Cancer Society is here. The American Cancer Society is involved in a lot, though. It's involved in research. It's involved in community programs. There is a program called Road to Recovery where patients can receive rides free of charge to go to and from treatment. It's involved in support groups. It's involved in women being able to receive free wigs. I reiterate again, it's involved in research. There is a 24-hour hotline. There are many, many different community-based programs serving people across the United States and beyond. I'm here more to talk about what Relay for Life is. There are Relay for Lives that occur all over the country, frankly worldwide. The one that's most local to you is Relay for Life of Greater Parsippany, which occurs on an annual basis at the beautiful Veterans Memorial Park. We're so lucky to have Mayor Barbario involved, who gives us a lot of support each year. Relay for Life is for a 24-hour event. For us, it's 16 hours. It starts at 2 p.m. and ends at 6 a.m. the next morning. Relay for Life is not a relay race. You don't get out there and run the track. is the relay synonymous with what a person who has cancer goes through when they receive a diagnosis through treatment and hopefully to recovery. Opening ceremonies begin at 4 p.m. Survivors take the first lap, caregivers take the second, and then it opens up for everybody in the community to walk. There are activities, there is entertainment, there is a lot of fun. At 9 p.m. there's a luminaria ceremony where white bags that say in honor of with the person's name or in memory of light the track. The lights in the park are completely turned off, so all you have is the honor and the in memory bags. There is then at 10 p.m. a fight back ceremony where we work on advocacy to put an end to this dreaded disease. And at 6 a.m. there are closing ceremonies for anybody who doesn't sleep very well or gets up early in the morning, where the top teams. We have been going at this for the committee. We start in September. For the teams, they start in January. We have 26 teams and I believe 145 participants. We've raised about $26,000 right now. It is not too late to participate. Thank you. We are always looking for people to come on down to the park. If you've never been part of it, I would say it's probably one of the most emotional events to take part in, short of family weddings and other things that happen in people's lives. Again, my name is Bonnie Rosenthal. I'm actually a Randolph resident. I come to the Relay for Life of Greater Parsippany because of the beautiful park, because of the support, and I'd be happy. I'm going to leave information here as to how you can get involved. You can contact the American Cancer Society office. I did not bring my business card, but it would be great to see some of you and or to receive your support. There's nothing else like it.
Next up, presentation by Morris County Freeholder Hank Lyon for an overview of the 2013 county budget.
Thank you, Council President and Council for having me here. On behalf of the entire Board of Chosen Freeholders, I want to thank you. We're making an effort to reach out to all 39 municipalities and share our budget. We feel that it is, after all, the entire county's resources, and we want the municipalities to know where we're investing the funds that we have, and also to just open up dialogue with the municipalities. We really want to get to the point where any one of you feel that you could make a call to any one of us. And I have good news. One, we're going to be talking budget here, so it's going to be very, very boring. And I believe that I'm the bearer of good news, so here we go. The Freeholder Board this year had a two-pronged goal. We wanted to introduce a budget that did not raise taxes, but we wanted to do so while maintaining all of the vital critical services that the county currently offers. And I am happy to announce that on February 27th, we introduced a budget that did just that. Our budget does not raise taxes for the first time in 15 years, but we do continue to offer all of the services that the county residents have come to expect. And actually, when you include a $3.9 million reduction in our open space tax, our net reduction was actually 1.7%. And I would like to pause for one moment on the open space tax, and at the end, if any council people have a comment on open space, I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. This is a program that's been around since 1992, and in that time, we have been able to preserve a significant amount of land. But for the last 6 years, the county has been reducing that tax, and nevertheless, today we have $75 million in unencumbered funds. Effectively, what we're seeing is that the number of applications from the municipalities is plummeting. And so the county right now is in discussions about what is the future of this program. And there are a number of different possibilities that we're exploring, but if any of the council people have thoughts and on that, I'd be very happy to hear those thoughts. This budget reduces spending by $2.3 million, and I will get to where that comes in just a moment. The next page is just an overview of county finances going back to 2007. This is really just to give you an idea of county finances really since the economy took a downturn, so you can take a look at that if you'd like. But we achieved a tax reduction. First and foremost, we really want to give kudos to the governor and the state legislature. Their historic pension and healthcare reform saved us well over $1 million, and we probably could not have achieved this without that. In addition, we saved over $2 million by redesigning our healthcare plans offered to our employees. Effectively, what we said is that all healthcare plans are still available, but if an employee wants to have the most expensive one, the one that's sometimes called the Cadillac plan, they could keep it, but they would have to pay in above and beyond what the current law requires, and that saved us over $2 million. This budget reflects a $1.1 million reduction in salary expenses due to the fact that there are 63 less employees in this budget than in last year's budget. The majority of those positions are due to the fact that we privatized the housekeeping services at the Morrisview Healthcare Center. That's something that started back in about 2008. The Freeholder Board began outsourcing non-direct care at the Morrisview Healthcare Center, and each time that we've done that, we've seen that services either stayed the same or actually, in the case of food, actually the residents prefer the food now that an outside vendor is doing it. Yet each time we were able to save significant amounts of money, so it was really a no-brainer in our mind. And like I said, this is the first zero actually in 15 years. But it is a significant amount of money, and just to highlight the services that we provide, we provide over 500,000 meals through our Meals on Wheels program between both home delivered meals and our nutrition centers. Morrisview does remain home to 283 individuals. We have level funding at the County College of Morris, the Morris County School of Technology, and the Park Commission. And we do continue to provide a number of other human service programs. I'm actually, besides the chairman of the Budget Committee, I'm also the liaison to the Department of Human Services. So I've gotten to know these quite well. We also invest very heavily, about a quarter of our budget, in public safety. We provide a number of services, sheriff's office versus prosecutor, and I'd like to highlight the bottom one there, the Juvenile Detention Center / Youth Shelter. That is actually a shared service that we have with a total of 4 counties, and we're very aggressive in looking for any shared service opportunity with other counties or municipalities within our county. Here we have a pie chart just of where resources are invested, and just to give you a flavor of where we'd like to go, the capital debt of $40 million, our debt service, in coming years we'd really like to work on reducing that, and we feel confident that we're going to be able to because we're benefiting from the fact that previous freeholder boards have been very aggressive in maintaining the infrastructure that we have. And so when you look at major facilities in the county, they tend to be relatively new. And so aside from just ongoing maintenance, we don't feel that we're going to have to build any new major facilities. And so over the next few years, we're hoping that we can continue to work reducing our debt. But we talk a lot about structural balance in the Freeholder Board. It's one thing to have a good 2013 budget, but if it comes at the expense of 14, 15, and 16, well, then that's no good. And we also have a AAA bond rating, which we really want to protect. And so for a number of reasons, we feel very strongly that this is a structurally balanced budget. And one thing I'd like to highlight is at the very bottom there. Our use of surplus in this budget is unchanged. And in fact, technically, we use $200,000 less surplus in this budget than we did last year, but effectively it's the same. But you know, sometimes you'll hear that a government entity lowered taxes, but if you dig into the details, you'll find out they rated surplus, but that is not the case here. And so we feel strongly that future years' budgets should be very good. To discuss for a moment the debt plan that I did talk about. Historically, the Freeholder Board has aimed to bond $25 billion per year. And like I said, we're committed to trying to reduce that. And so this year, we've only bonded about $22.5 million, so about a 10% reduction. And we hope to be able to continue that on. But some of the projects that are underway, we're continuing to upgrade the Public Safety Training Academy. The first phase of that is actually going to be done later this month in June. We're continuing the renovation of the Central Avenue complex into a multi-use human service nonprofit mall. That is a nonprofit mall where nonprofits throughout the county are going to be able to conglomerate and share resources. And it actually ends up saving the county about $350,000 a year because the St. Clair's Behavioral Health Program, which had been headquartered here in Parsippany, is now going to be at that facility. And we had been paying that lease, so we will no longer have to pay that $350,000. And then we're also, in September or October, going to be completing 4 multi-use turf fields on the former Greystone site right by the Human Service Nonprofit Mall. We have a handful of additions that I just want to go over quickly. Not a lot, but a little. We provided an additional $30,000 to the Morris County Tourism Bureau for a number of events, including the 2014 Super Bowl. We provided an additional $20,000 to the Morris County Economic Development Corporation to hopefully, again, spur economic growth. We provided $40,000 for the disposal of ammunition and fireworks. That had been funded by a grant through the state, but this year that grant went away, and rather than pass that cost on to the municipalities, the board chose to absorb it into our budget. And then we've also retained a chief information officer's funding by eliminating vacant positions at the department. And that's another shared service that we're looking into the possibility of whether we could provide IT services to municipalities that were interested. And the reason for that is what we've heard from a number of municipalities. It's difficult for the municipalities to reach the economies of scale when it comes to IT. So that's something we're exploring. We haven't announced formally on that, but it's something we're looking into. And then this last page is really, I think, the most important. It's something people don't like to talk about, but I think it is the most important. And that is, what are the risks going forward? The Freeholder Board has identified the biggest risk in our budget is the uncertainty of Medicaid funding for Morris View. Actually, in a debate between President Obama and then candidate Romney, the issue of nursing home funding specifically came up. And the board is concerned that the state and/or federal government in future years will reduce our reimbursement rates, and we rely heavily on Medicaid and Medicare dollars for that. So we're watching very closely, but we also feel we've insulated ourselves quite well in this budget because we have assumed that funding at Morris View will be reduced by $1 million this year. So if that occurs, we've already insulated ourselves somewhat. If it doesn't occur, then we're going to be $1 million better off in this budget. We're also concerned about future increases in health insurance, particularly now with the Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare, and rising pension costs. Those are something that every government entity in New Jersey is having a difficult time handling. And last but not least, interest arbitrator rulings unfavorable to the taxpayers can be difficult to plan for. So we're really identifying those as our risks, but we are planning aggressively for 2014. We introduced on February 27th in the morning, and actually that afternoon we had our first formal meeting of the budget committee for the 2014 budget. So we're really trying to get ahead on this. We meet weekly to monitor both the expenses of this year, but to plan for next year. And we've actually formed a 25-point plan of just brainstorming ideas as to what we could do to save money and to look for all restructuring of any county operations to achieve efficiencies. And with this 25-point plan, we're hoping by putting it all out there, we're able to get a good head start. The last few pages are really just graphs to give more historical data that you can take a look at your leisure. But at that point, I'd really like to just see if anybody has any questions, comments, suggestions, or concerns.
I have one, if I may.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned some new fields at Greystone. How will the time on those fields be allocated? Who do we contact?
Those fields are being operated by the Park Commission, and so you will rent them out. There will be an in-county rate and an out-of-county rate. So if they are, if somebody reserves them, obviously that entity will get to use it. If nobody's reserving it, then they're just open to anybody to public use.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. DiPiero, I was just kind of stole my thunder. I was going to ask the same thing, but I do know that that area of town is underutilized, and I just wanted to reach out and let people know again that there are 4 turf fields that are currently being built in Parsippany. Mr. Line, a few people have asked me to ask the freeholders this. What was the rationale of turning the Greystone Park into Central Park? Where did that name come from?
Well, let's see. That predates my time on the Freeholder Board. That's going back, I think, 2007.
Central Park. I mean,
Well, the concept, I can answer this because I was a freeholder at the time. The concept was to create a nonprofit corridor for the nonprofits in the county to have a common home, and that was the brainchild of former freeholder Murphy, who has been a very outspoken leader for the nonprofits in the county, and he really put a lot of effort into helping to make that occur. The other thought was to develop a series of fields that would be available in the county to help supplement usage by municipal and other organizations and teams in the county and out of the county if there wasn't enough interest in the county. The state actually gave the county much of that property, and and gave it to the county for use and the benefit of the citizens of Morris County. So that's really the origin of the Central Park, which again is the nonprofit corridor and the recreational facilities.
My question was the name.
Oh, the name Central Park. I believe that was Freeholder Murphy. That was his name, and because of the work that he put in on it, he was certainly deserving of being able to name it.
If anyone has any questions based on the budget, just please come up to the mic.
Okay, well, thank you, council, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Hank.
Okay, bids to be taken, May 29, 2013, 11:30 a.m., electric generation supply services. Next up, ordinance, second reading, public hearing, ordinance 2013:09, Mr. DiPiero.
Ordinance 2013:09, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending chapters 329 entitled Sewers and 420 entitled Water of the Code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills for the purpose of establishing fees and average daily water and sewerage flows for the year 2013. The above ordinance was published in its entirety in a daily record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on April 19, 2013.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Farrar, roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up this ordinance and only this ordinance to the public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Karifi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, at this time, I'll open this ordinance only to the public. Okay. Roy, you'll be given 3 minutes on this.
I'll be
Okay.
short. Thank you, President. You had the first reading last week, last month? I don't remember a first reading on this. Can somebody just figure, I just saw it for the first time tonight. Are these increasing our rates, decreasing our rates? What is this exactly? I see gallons per day for apartments, one bedroom.
The fees were, the water connection fee was decreased. The sewer connection fee was also decreased. In terms of the gallons assigned to each bedroom size,
Right. Well, right now, like my house, or I guess anybody with a house, it's 10,000 gallons a quarter. Is that changing?
no, that's correct. In terms of the gallonage by bedroom size, there are some residential units that are not metered for water. So they pay fees based on the bedrooms, the number of bedrooms.
I asked a few minutes, but this has nothing to do with our rates.
No.
Just the sewer connection? All right, I'll have to read it, I'll call you.
And
guys.
this is something that we're supposed to evaluate every year and determine whether the rates are fair.
If the purpose, Mr. Mayor, the origin of the ordinance came from the township's consultant who recommended that this ordinance be enacted to ensure that the township rates comply with applicable law.
Okay. And just one question, I don't know if it's germane to this. At a prior meeting about a year ago, the township attorney cut me off on this, but prior to that, I already told him that night I wasn't cut off. What is our surplus right now? April 30th.
Excuse me?
It's April 30th. I know it's the middle of the month, but about.
I don't have,
Okay.
if you call me tomorrow, I'll give you some.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I'll entertain a motion to close the public on this hearing. Motion by Mr. Farrar. Second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, Mr. DiPiero.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and the hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open this up to the public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero,
Second.
second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Okay, open to the public. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak.
Right, I need a. Roy Messmer, 10 Drumlin Drive. I had prepared this at 4 o'clock this morning, not knowing what was going to happen today, of course, but I still think it's very germane. Unfortunately, the mayor's not here, so I got to make believe he's here like he wasn't here a couple of weeks ago. I was going to ask you, Mr. Councilman Ferrara, to stop me after 4 minutes so the mayor can answer my questions, but obviously that's a done deal already. But I'll start with it. Speech is pretty much going to be anyway how it was going to be. Is Jigger Shore a liaison for the Indian community to your office, or is he a campaign worker for the Barbero Flower Shop team? Mayor, you cannot fool all the people all the time. At this moment, I am going to repeat what's been told to me directly. A very reputable Indian businesswoman told me Jigger has been to her house repeatedly to annoy her and her husband and her family to change party affiliation from Democrat to Republican. 2, another Indian couple. She's a mom, she's a housewife, she doesn't work. Same thing, Jigger is constantly annoying her and her husband to change party affiliation. 3, just happened yesterday. An Indian businessman, who I know quite well, told me that Jigger is hounding him and his wife and repeatedly telling Indian families that the town will descend on your home for unnoticed inspections for housing violations. What a town this has become, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Barbario, what has Jigger Shore reported to you as your self-appointed, only appointed liaison? Please tell us tonight. What has happened to Mayor Barbario? Do you need this job that badly that you will do and bring in people to do anything necessary to keep this elected position? You have made a lot of mistakes, too many to verbally express tonight because I only get 5 minutes. However, this mistake will be expressed to the voters of Parsippany over the next 3 weeks. I have a thing out of the Star-Ledger dated May 11th about a campaign worker election fraud. I am not insinuating that Jigger has performed any of these. What happened to you, Mr. Mayor? For the last 12 years, I've had the opportunity, mostly voluntarily, from your former high school classmates. Tell me what a down-to-earth guy you were. But now I call a political Lord of the Flies, which happens to a lot of you. I was going to ask him to answer the 2 questions, but obviously he's not here. So you say there was no job gate, that it is over. Then tell us, and maybe you can answer this, Mr. Inglesino, why was there a Sunday meeting at 8 p.m.? Why were you present? Why Lou Valori, not another retired police officer that the mayor has given many jobs to in this town? Next, the $80,000 in merit raises. I want to thank you, Mayor, for being a good steward of our hard-earned money. Of course, that's sarcastic. I hope everybody understands that. There happens to be a part-time person here tonight who received a $1,350 raise. Now, I did not, this is added on now, ladies and gentlemen. She happens to be a very good person. She happens to be a fabulous worker at ShopRite. I've known her for over 20 years. I wish I could hire her in one of my companies. Men and women who clean our streets, bring water to my house, take the wastewater out of my house, did not get a raise like that. And I could go on and on and on with those 20, 25 people. I don't think it's that many, but 20. Retiring personnel, number of people are retiring, $5,000 raise. That gives them $3,000 more per year in their pensions until they die. Or I guess their spouse too. I'm not sure how the pension law works in New Jersey.
Roy, 30
Thank you.
seconds.
Thank you. Thank you. You're a nice guy with our money, Mr. Mayor. This is totally different, but Mayor Barbario was a councilman at that time along with Mr. DiPiero, which is about, came out in February 2008, Valentine's Day. I call it the Valentine's Day Massacre because some kids were one kid was picked up for drugs at Parsippany Hills the same day. Regarding John Montefusco Sr., we were told, the people of Parsippany were going to get their monies back and the $30,000 plus that was spent for that investigation. Are we going to pursue the lawsuit against Montefusco Sr.? Yes or no? Or you can't answer me, right? We're not? Well, you weren't an attorney then, but I mean, if you could hear the tape, I have it.
I'm not answering the question,
Oh.
Mr. Mesmer, but questions regarding prospective litigation are not not for public discussion.
Okay, but, well, I can ask the question, are we suing them?
There is no lawsuit that has been filed.
Okay, that's all.
I think your time has expired.
Yes, okay.
Okay, Roy, time's up. Thank you. Right here.
Council President, can I respond to this one thing?
Yes.
Roy, you mentioned the merit raises. Mr. Council President, a lot's been made over the past week about the merit raises, and I just, Roy, it'd be all right if I explained to you what the process is, because the mayor did acknowledge that the merit raises were put into the budget, and he was annoyed that Councilman Karifian and myself had objections to it, but I'd just like to explain. And if Jasmine could clarify if I say anything wrong for her, please correct me. The only way that council members were able to tell if merit raises are in the budget was to look at the previous year's budget. And you take any employee and you look at their base salary and add 2%, because there was no 2% going across for each employee. So you take that base salary times 2% and you have a salary. And then you look at this year's budget, and if numbers don't jive, then you know that there's a merit raise. And you would have to do that with all 450 employees. Does that kind of clarify? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Jasmine, is that correct?
Not quite. The process is, but I have copies for the council that you can look at afterwards, but if you look at, there are many employees whose salaries are allocated between the current fund and all three utilities, and for those employees it was very difficult to tell what if any increase, merit increase was provided. But if you look at any of the employees who are 100% funded by either the current fund or one of the utilities, you can see that the base salary changed. And it changed by the merit increase that...
Right, but my point was the only way that I would have as a councilman have any knowledge of that would be to look at, to actually have last year's budget in front of me and start comparing with it.
No, on the budget that you have, you can see, and when I've highlighted everything, so you can take this back with you, and it'll be pretty obvious. Longevity comes after. Yeah. You know, the 2% came after, and then the longevity comes after. Because the longevity stays the same. It doesn't increase by the 2% and the merit, obviously the merit doesn't change it. But it's all on this year's budget.
Wouldn't it, since when we get our budget laid out in front of us, it has every employee and it has their percentage of their raise listed right next to their name that they are getting for that year. Wouldn't it make sense just to put the merit, also list the merit raise where it also says their proposed increase, their longevity rate, and then have a column with their merit raise, so that that would be plain and simple right in front of everybody? Wouldn't that make it more simple for everyone to just see?
It could,
Right? I mean, when we get this packet with every town employee we have, it'll list a name, it'll say proposed increase, longevity rate that they get, their total salary. Why not just put another column there for people that are getting a merit raise and put it right on there next to their name, instead of doing it that way where you can't just see it right on their spreadsheet? Wouldn't that make more sense, just to have it right in front of us?
that could be done.
Jasmine, my understanding, because I went over this really, really closely, on the 2013 budget, for anybody who wants to download it from the town's website, there's a line item that says the base salary, $1231.12. When I went back, the only way that I was able to tell who received merit raises was to look at that number and then compare it to last year's number plus the 2% that all white-collar employees received. That's the way. That was the only way I was able to come up with the number.
If you look, did you get the handout?
Yeah, Brian just gave it.
If you look at some of the later pages, not the earlier pages, because those are the people who are allocated, and if you look at the the two columns that are highlighted, that's where you'll see the difference, and that difference is the merit increase. There's a slight difference. Some of the numbers aren't quite correct. We have 3 different systems. We have the budget, our ABRA system, and then the payroll system.
Those numbers aren't
And
adding up.
the numbers don't always quite match. So if someone received a $3,000 merit increase, it might come out as $2,900.
Yeah, is that because the 2012 doesn't have the 2% allocated from last year? Because
In some cases,
I'm looking
yes.
at all of them, none of them match up.
Yeah, but it's close.
Yeah, I'm not even looking at
It might be the 2%.
I'm not even looking at any employee whose pay was allocated across water, sewer, and the golf utilities. I'm looking at other people, and it's still not jiving with what the merit raises included.
The exact amount is not what I had previously provided to the council, but you do see that base changed, and that base is changed because of the merit increase.
Okay.
Okay, seeing nobody else come forward, I'll entertain, sir. Do me a favor, if you're gonna come up, just please sit in the front row. Yeah, you're good, sir.
Is this one work? Yes. My name's Richard Green. I live in 12 Puddingstone Road. 10 years ago,
Your name, sir?
Richard Green,
Thank you.
the builder, building a new development, tore up the road to put sewers and water in, and totally desiccated the road, did an awful repair. So we've been fighting with 3 mayors, and it's a decade now, and just trying to get our road fixed. And I've spoke to James many times, and Luther before that, and the other mayor. It was a total waste of time. We just want our road fixed, and we're sick and tired of lies from the town that you would call us back. You never did. The damage to our cars is unbelievable from this road. I don't know if any of the members have driven the road. It's dangerous. Literally, your own town vehicles drive on the other side of the road because they can't go down. And the police cars even drive on the opposite side of the road because the road is so atrocious. It has nearly a 3-foot variant on the camber of the road. What do? You never return our calls. You can check your town records. I became very good friends with Louise, and then I believe it's Michelle now. She even knows me on first names terms. I don't even have to say who I am. Oh, hello, Richard, how are you? I'm sorry, no one called you back. I said, no, nobody did. I never do. So I did speak to James in the car park and the town attorney, and they said that you've now come with an agreement to surface the road. We just don't believe you. Because what's it going to be, another 10 years? Because he's not going to finish the road. And you're now asking us to trust the same man to fix the road that destroyed it, because he's going to pay for it. We pay our taxes. We don't ask a lot. There's only 23 people in the street, but we can't get a road fixed. And every day I have to drive down the road. I had friends visit from Europe, and they thought it was a third world country. This is a road you see in Africa, not freaking Parsippany. It's unbelievable. A town you want to live in, a progressive town? Absolutely no way. I suggest every one of you drive the road. And now, 10 years ago when you put the septics in, you said, no, you can connect. We did this for you. No, you didn't, because you never went round the corner for the other people at the end of the road. You asked them, would you like sewers? Yeah, we'd love them. I don't want your sewer. I don't want your water. I had to put a brand new 30,000 septic in because I couldn't wait any longer. Now you think you're going to say, well, now you've got to connect, Mr. Green. Well, I don't want that. You had your opportunity 10 years ago. There are people in the street that would like to connect. I don't want it. But why? Only God has the right to make people's life miserable. Miserable. Every day I drive down that road, I get so frustrated and mad with it, and I have to come home at night. I call the town, my town, and you don't give me the courtesy of calling me back. I think it's atrocious. Every single one of you should do your job. Now, I know James has invited us into the mayor, and we'll take him up on his offer. But I wanted to say a piece. The rest of the street is here. We're sick and tired of it. Is it really that hard? I get more information from the builder than I do you guys. You're my town. And you can't tell me nothing? I stop the builder in the street and ask him. He gives me more information. You'd never call me back. I think in 10 years, Luther, I give him credit, came in the street. We had an argument in the street, but he was on enough to shake my hand. And he at least called me back and said, Richard, there is nothing I can do. The builder has us and there's nothing I can do. I appreciate that, because the man was honest with me. I can't even get a reply. What do? Do I just wait another 10 years? There's people died in our street waiting to get the road. The gentleman I have an old Italian gentleman across the road. I used to have a coffee with him in the mornings. And he used to sit and talk about the road. He's passed on now. Can you understand our frustration? Really? Any of you? I mean, I curse today. I moved to Parsippany. I really do. I hear all these beautiful things about it. Great town. Really nice. I chose to live in Parsippany. And the building site, which they're building on, has become a landfill. We get trucks come down the road at 2 o'clock in the morning, dumping garbage, dumping tree roots, coming down there on a Sunday. Very little scares me. I was out there on a Sunday confronting a truck driver, telling him I'd pull him out his freaking cab if he stopped running his trucks up and down the street on a Sunday. You're not allowed to work on a Sunday. It's the law. Your law. Enforce it. Why should I have to enforce it? We've had people doing deliveries of building components at 2 o'clock in the morning. A lady here was terrified. She has 2 children. and they were knocking on her door saying, and she was terrified. I wish to God you'd have called me. And then they filed a police report, but that got lost. What the hell is going on? And we're tired of it. I've called the town about illegal dumping of tyres, leaves, wood, tree roots. Oh yeah, we're calling back. We'll get it all tidied up, Mr. Green. It's still there.
Sir, I gotta give you 30 seconds.
I gave you 10 years. And you haven't fixed my road. Thank you.
Councilman, do we have any dates or anything set up for the project?
Sir, as I discussed with the gentleman out in the parking lot, the road is the subject of the omnibus settlement agreement that the council approved with Mossberg-related entities. That agreement is in its final negotiations. The key terms have been agreed to. One of those provisions is that the road will be fixed. When exactly, I can't tell you at this point, but the position of the developer at this moment is that it will be fixed immediately after there's a zoning ordinance that's enacted by the town. So I would anticipate at the moment, sometime towards the end of this coming fall, is probably the time frame that you're looking at. If that is accelerated, we'll certainly let you know. I hear your concerns, and that has been an issue that we've been pushing in the agreement to accelerate the fixing of that road. But I'm confident it will be done, and it will not be 10 years, not by any stretch.
Sir, I was down on your street yesterday. I know the street it's in bad shape. After the council meeting, could you mind just waiting a minute? Because I'm curious about where the dumping is going on. I'm familiar with the problems with the road, but as far as the dumping, that's a whole different matter.
Not about the dumping is, it goes on every weekend, every Sunday, they come down illegally down the street, and they no longer there, they come down at 2 o'clock in the morning and they dump. Just walk around the building side, you'll see it. It's not the builder's fault. He's not there.
All right.
Just open your eyes. You'll see old tree root,
Yeah.
old
Okay.
Lou Valori, 36 Gathering Hill Court, Morris Plains, New Jersey, 07950. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to hear all the speeches you had in place here. I walked into the end part of it, Council President Stanton. So unfortunately, I was running around with my children, and I tried my best to get here on time. One thing I would like to direct towards Brian Stanton, and obviously try to obviously explain part of the allegations that you made in your comments there. I just want to stress to the public that everything that I reported to the authorities, to the Morris County Prosecutor's Office, the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office, was 110% the truth. All the information I provided them was based on the act of you approaching me on November 29th. Okay, all this information that I provided them was nothing but the truth, and I will take that to the very end. The bottom line was, you approached me, obviously, you called for that meeting on January 13th, 2013 at 8 o'clock at night at Town Hall. Okay, the meeting did take place. What I find kind of appalling, the mayor's not here right now, to obviously maybe explain to the public, he stated openly several times in the public that the meeting never took place and he never authorized a job. Well, that's quite, differently than really what happened that night. So if you give me the opportunity to play a portion of the tape from that night, that I was there on January 13th, 2013 with you, the mayor, and John Inglesino, so then that obviously goes against exactly what the mayor was saying, that he was calling me a liar, that the meeting didn't take place. Obviously, he did not offer me a job, or did he authorize anybody to offer me a job? If you have a problem with me playing this tape that's on NewJersey.com, it's open to the public right now.
That's a legal question, not me. I would have to.
I have no problem with the playing of the tape. I know it's under 2 minutes and will stay within your time frame, but Mr. Valori, perhaps you could share with the public where the mayor ever indicated that a meeting never took place, because I've been following this story pretty closely, and I've never seen that comment.
Okay,
Can we
okay.
please, what
So
we're gonna
let me-
do,
let me
what we're
put
gonna
it
do
to-
is let Mr. Valori have his 5 minutes. We're not gonna interrupt, you have your 5 minutes.
Obviously, the
Once-
mayor stated that he never authorized a job for me, never offered me a job. I beg the difference of what took place that night. So what I'll do is, this is on NewJersey.com. It's on here.
The reason why I called you is because you told Brian, I didn't, well, yeah, no one's gonna know it. This is me personally. I think the mayor's office should run the whole fucking kit and caboodle. I spoke to Brian, I told him what the concept was. He didn't have a problem. I'm a sort of employment contract. I kind of wanted to gauge your interest, you know, in what the mayor's thought was and the job. The job would be that it would be, you know, to work exclusively, you know, for the mayor. It would not be a civil service job. It would be a job that would be under the, you know, municipal government. You know, there would be a PD component, strictly public relations. For somebody like you, I don't know what that means in terms of a pension. I suspect it means nothing. It means something, yeah. But I don't know. Okay. And, you know, it would be, you know, work at the pleasure of the mayor. The person would work at the pleasure of the mayor, for the mayor, so it would be at will. Really, the point was to sort of let you know about that and to sort of gauge what your interest might be. I think the sort of discussion about funding for the job would be 50. And just gotta let me know if you're interested in the position. It's really. Yeah, no. Yeah, because you have too much time. That's why you're not answering the call. You're on the guitar. When you come by the day, so here. Hey, listen, you know, when they say they're going to put the cops on 2/3, you go out 2/3, just keep playing the guitar by yourself. You don't answer the phone. They'll come and take you away. So the next step will be, pretty much straight up front. I mean, the agreement would be an employment contract. They'll say to be well, it is a, you know, it's a position of loyalty as a worker to the mayor.
Mr. Valori, 30 seconds.
What I want to stress to you, obviously you all had your theatrics with your pre-paid, with your pre-formatted statements here. The reality was I told nothing but the truth, and I continue to tell the truth. And if I have to take this to the federal authorities to let them give a fair and impartial investigation, I will. And what I find very interesting is the letter that you have here from the prosecutor's office that doesn't say that I lied. Obviously, it's saying that it wasn't viable. It doesn't say anything about I lied. And what I find appalling was I didn't even receive this letter from the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office that this case was closed. And I was also told by the prosecutor's office that this case would not even be ended or concluded prior to the election because they don't want to interfere with the election. But this is obviously 2 weeks prior to the election. And again, I did not receive this. I was never notified. And I want to stress to the public, I told nothing but the truth. And I will provide more information in the time to come on this. So if anybody is owed an apology from the mayor, it's me, because he said that obviously he never offered me a job and he never authorized anybody to offer a job. And obviously on that tape, Brian, he offered me a job and he stated that he spoke to you about the job. So if anybody should be obviously apologized to, is me, and I was not lying about anything. And these formatted statements saying that I was lying, that's an opinion. This is not from the obviously the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office, and this is appalling to the taxpayers of the town.
Mr. Council President, Mr. Valori, your charge, and I'm not going to permit the truth to be perverted by you any longer unanswered. Your charge was that you were bribed. Your charge was, you will sit and listen to me and allow me to speak. You had your 5 minutes. Your charge was that you were bribed. Your charge was that you were offered a job in exchange for not running for office. Now, you have offered, nor have you ever offered, any proof whatsoever to substantiate that charge because you were never offered a job in exchange for not running for office. So that to me, sir, by definition, is a lie. You've lied to the press about it. You've lied publicly about it. I have no way of knowing. Your tape there of under 2 minutes of a meeting that was much longer provides absolutely nothing in regards to you running for office whatsoever. In terms of the job, and I want to express what occurred very, very clearly in that regard. What I was told was two things. Number one, that the mayor had a desire to create a public relations job, and this was told to you that evening. And if you had played the whole tape, then that conversation would be on there, but since you edited it, nobody has any way of knowing. The mayor had expressed an interest in creating a public relations job within the mayor's office. Through two storms, the mayor found that his ability to communicate with the public was lacking. And he needs, and frankly, in my opinion, I think he's right, he does need a public relations position in his office. That's what the job that was contemplated at the time. Now, right now, the police department has a full-time public relations person who happens to be a patrolman. The thought was to put that patrolman out on the street, patrolling the streets, put him back out on patrol, and to create a public relations job, not in the police department, as has been reported in the press, but within the administration, working for the mayor, and that person might also be able to accommodate and handle public relations functions for the police department. It also come to my attention that you were very much looking for a job, and the thought was that your background and resume may be a good fit. You were a retired policeman, you had been on the school board in town, you had run for freeholder, that you may have the skill set and experience to be able to perform a job of that nature. Yes, there was a contemplated salary for the job of $50,000, which would have been a full-time position. One of the cost benefits to the town by employing a former police officer is that you would save on pension contributions and costs. You would save on health benefits. So there would be a cost savings to the town and an enhanced service. That was the concept. We met in town hall on a Sunday evening to accommodate schedules to discuss the possibility of that position. My question is to you, if you had played the whole tape in its entirety, maybe you should do that.
I will.
Was to solicit two things from you. Number one was whether or not you had any interest in that position. Now, you've made all kinds of public comments to the effect that you immediately said you had no interest in the position and you wanted nothing to do with it. You lied about that too, because what you said that night was you were very interested. The second concept was to also elicit from you, based on your experience, whether or not that job structure could work, and you said yes. The other part of the tape that is missing, but has been reported in bits and pieces in the patch, was that I also told you that there was no job, that it would have to be created by the council, and it would have to go through the public process, and there would also have to be an employment agreement. Now, an employment agreement would be a public document, it would come before the council for a vote. And that, by the way, was on the part of the tape that you just played, the fact that there would be an employment agreement. I told you that there would have to be a public process and the council would have to create the position. It was also discussed in the meeting that Mr. Stanton would then poll council members to see whether or not they would be supportive of the position that I have just outlined. Mr. Stanton did poll his council members. That was reported in previous accounts of this story. And Mr. Stanton reported back immediately to the mayor that he, in his judgment, he didn't think there was any support for this position. And that was it. The case was closed. There was no further discussion from January 13th on. You were never offered a job. There was an exploratory meeting about the possibility of a prospective job. There was never a job offer. That's not true. Second was, there was never any discussion about a job in exchange for you not running for office. And you know, Mr. Valori, you've sent everything you can send down to the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office. As an independent, well-respected law enforcement agency, they reviewed everything you sent down, including whatever tape you sent down. They interviewed you, they interviewed another police officer, and as I've indicated in my comments, myself, the mayor, and Mr. Stanton, although we were not obligated to go, we didn't have to say anything, we did under oath. And the prosecutor's office has come to the conclusion that your case has no merit. Now, if you have any proof to the contrary, What are you hiding? Why are you hiding it?
Did not say that I lied, did it? From your allegations that you're putting in those statements there?
Mr. Valori, the word lie is my conclusion based upon the facts.
Your conclusion.
There is never, by the way, the Somerset, to get a letter like what we received from a law enforcement agency is an extraordinary thing. Typically, they don't say anything. Typically, the investigations just die. For them to come out and say that further investigation is not warranted and a criminal case is not viable is an extraordinary statement and it rebukes the claims that you have made.
That's your opinion.
That's not my opinion. That's what happened. So your case is now closed, Mr. Valori.
I have two questions that I would like to know. Why on a Sunday night? I mean, business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, whatever it is. Why on a Sunday night at Town Hall at 8 o'clock at night was there this meeting conducted for an interview? And secondly, Mr. Inglesino, why are you there? Are you present for every job interview, every person that we hire in town? Or why were you there?
I'll answer both questions. First of all, I didn't set the time for the meeting. I did insist that a meeting discussing town business be at Town Hall. I know that Mr. Stanton works during the days. There were scheduling conflicts. I had heard, as Mr. Valori had said, that there were previous attempts to have something discussed. I don't know. I didn't set the meeting. I was asked if I could attend the meeting. I did. As to why I was there, the mayor discussed it with me, and he asked me to attend. Why? To make sure that the explanation was clear in terms of what was being discussed, what was not being offered, and what was being discussed, so that Mr. Valori was clear as to what the position would be if it was created. I did want to make some points to Mr. Valori in terms of an at-will employment. I did want to make sure that Mr. Valori understood that this would not be a pensionable position, and also to answer any questions that he or the mayor or the council president might have in terms of the legal steps that would have to be performed in order for the job to have been even created, because the job did not and does not exist. And you can't offer a job that does not exist. And I made very clear to you at the meeting, Mr. Valori, and a full tape of the meeting, if you didn't edit it out, would show that I told you that. And that I told you point blank that in order for a job to be created, it would have to go through the public process of the council, and that an employment agreement would have to be voted on by the council in open session. So this was an exploratory meeting, a meeting to gauge interest. There was no bribe. That's not my conclusion, Mr. Valori. That's the conclusion of the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office.
Well, you left out the loyalty position, right?
My other question is, you just stated that the mayor felt you needed to be at what? He's not confident in his abilities to explain a job thoroughly and correctly to a prospective employee. That's the first question. And second, since you said you were there to offer legal advice and stuff, were we billed for that meeting?
You should have been. Ms. Patacci had asked that question, and frankly, I didn't recall. So I went back and I looked at my timesheets, and I did not bill. I should have. It was a legitimate function under my duties, and one of the problems that I have, which is why you saved $220,000 in legal fees since I've been the township attorney, is because I don't keep track of my time as well as I should have, particularly on the weekends. And I think that because it was on an odd hour, I just didn't record the time.
Okay, next up.
Pat Pataccia, 182 Hawkins Avenue. Sorry the mayor took off again tonight, too. Jasmine, I want to check in the budget. I just want to make sure that the renovations, the road work for Borland Summit is in the budget.
Yes, it's in the capital budget, and it's part of the, I think it's listed in the bond ordinance that was, or will be introduced tonight.
Okay. Okay. You don't have to respond to this, okay? last week's lesson on surplus from you people was not necessary. I understand what a surplus is. I understand why it's needed. What you failed to hear, once again, was that I was saying that the mayor was using $550,000 of our sewer and our water surplus so he can have a 0 tax increase this year for us. Okay? The prior 2 years, he used surplus also. And we had tax increases. A total of $1,800,000 has been used from the water sewer utility surplus by Mayor Barbario during his administration, claiming it saves from taxes going up. However, it also proves to the residents are paying too much for the water and sewer. It's a self-sustaining facility. My point was surplus should never be used, should never be touched for anything other than that facility. And if by chance there is money in there, it should be returned to the taxpayers because they were overcharged. That is my point. My point is you explaining to me what a surplus is and that we need it. But then 3 years in a row, give this man $1,800,000 of our overcharged money that's sitting in there. It's ridiculous. I mean, think about it. Can you honestly be that naive? We elected you to do a job. We elected him to do a job. If he can't do it, I would like some of you guys to step in. We cannot keep using the surplus money. He said last year when I asked him at the budget meeting, why do you keep losing surplus? He told me, I'm going to use it next year too. I'm tired of using our surplus money, especially when I know we are being overcharged. That's number one. A 0% tax increase, I'm not sure how that really occurred because we have contracts that are 2.5 out there, so I don't know how we're even. But let's take that. We got a 0% tax increase this year. So that 2% cap we had this year goes into the 2014 budget for next year. And then we have for 2014. Now there's 4% cap that can be used. Now, by next year, you know darn well our tax is going to raise by at least 3.5% to the whole 4%. So giving us a 0 tax increase this year is really not doing us any favors. Okay? I do appreciate trying, but when you pull stuff like that, it just slaps you right in the face. I mean, I'm not that stupid that I don't know that, to give me a 0% tax increase during election year is going to create problems. Okay? Think about these things, guys, because these things, they're no-brainers. I mean, hey, I don't even have a college education, and I'm coming out with some pretty good stuff lately, aren't I?
30 seconds.
Open space. Again, you're letting the mayor take our money and put it for something that he wants. He wants. I haven't seen him ask any of your opinions. I haven't seen him have an open space committee meeting to get any other ideas. We have open space for years that we've been trying to pick up. He's still doing what he wants to do because he says he's mayor and he can. My last comment is, I don't care what happened on April 9th. The hostility, the arrogance, and the obnoxiousness was proven that night. The man should have been reprimanded by this council, and he wasn't. I don't want any apologies from anybody, because it really wouldn't matter to me at this point. Please think seriously and start worrying about the taxpayers. And Mr. Creefy, I will add,
Pat, I have to cut you off. You're over your time.
it was a bully period.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Pat?
Good evening.
Wait, hold on one second now.
He just wants to-
I just want to respond
One second.
to Ms. Patacha. Just so I understand you right, the three utilities, the water, the sewer, and the golf, they're all self-liquidating utilities. And if I understand you right, you believe that if the ratepayers are paying too much and it's creating a surplus, that shouldn't be put into the general budget. I couldn't agree more with you. I've been pulling my hair out for the last, since 2009 over this thing. Yeah, I've gone gray over this issue. I said to you last week, I guess as a consolation prize, the administration is using less sewer surplus this year than they did last year. But I think it's bad practice. There's no doubt that the sewer department, the sewer utility, needs to maintain a surplus every year for emergencies and eventualities. I don't think anybody would dispute that. I don't know what that number is. I would think it would be good practice for the administration to come up with that number and adjust the sewer fees accordingly. So it's really quite simple. So I couldn't agree more with you. On the number 2 thing, the 0% tax increase, you're right, I'm a little skeptical, but one thing they have to note, there's about $800,000 this year in deferred payments for various retirement payouts and the 2 hurricanes and the freak October storm. I think the governor signed legislation that allows that to be deferred, right?
Well, it's what you paid out over 5 years.
Yeah, right. So there's going to be deferred payment over 5 years for storms that happened in the past. So that's keeping the taxes down.
Thank you. Good evening. It says, please do not sign until it's your turn to speak. And it says name and address. Now, which address I'm putting there? My flooded property or the property I'm living? Am I right? So, which address I'm addressing there? The taxes I'm paying and the rent I'm paying? So every meeting I've been coming and I'm noticing everybody is talking about all other these matters, which is true. These matters
Just do
are.
me one favor, just state your name for the public.
Dolly Patel, 28 Cherokee Avenue. That's my taxpayer resident. Currently living in Troy Gardens. That's my rental resident. So every agenda I see is important. And then now I'm looking at the bottom. It says resolution non-consent agenda. So our agenda, the flooded Irene people, are non-consent agenda. They've been not considered to go back to their home. When people come and buy their home, when they are renting and they move to buy the home, and they look up, okay, my income is set income, I can afford this much house, but they never know this situation comes up and town is getting their taxes on time, and when we are going in town and asking for help, they say, go to hell, we don't care, we just need our money. I'm out of my property, and I paid the water sewer bill, because it comes quarterly. And then afterward, when I'm not living, that house is not, you can see it's not livable house. So why you are billing me water bill? Came to the office of mayor office couple of times. I was directed to here and there and went to the Jasmine's office. It took my $150 bill or under $100 bill, 3 years to resolve this. What the answer I'm getting in January 2013 from 2011, oh, Ms. Patel, town experienced first time this situation, meaning as a public, as a human being, I'm experiencing flood situation all the time. Other thing I noticed, this was a press release. Believe 2 weeks back, Mayor Barbero is announcing FEMA elevation of Lake Hiawatha home damaged by Hurricane Irene. I will read only one line, which obviously everyone has read this. Mayor Barbero is happy to announce, he's very happy to announce the elevation of Lake Hiawatha home. How many homes he has elevated? How happy he is. Have we thought about how we are surviving our life, paying mortgage, or how mortgage companies are harassing us? Who is coming and stepping up and helping us out? That's all I wanted to say.
Do you want me to respond? It's on the non-consent agenda because it's an add-on. We have been negotiating with the contractors. As late as yesterday, we were putting prices together, and so we had to add it on. We weren't able to discuss this with the council last week. If we had been able to discuss it with the council last week, it would have been put on the consent agenda. But because we were negotiating with contractors up until the last minute, and we finally have finalized the contractors that are going to be awarded on a house-by-house basis. It's an add-on. It doesn't mean that the council's not going to consent to it.
But on this press release, which came out, I think, when he did it on next door neighbor, my house, elevation process, it says under FEMA flood hazard mitigation grant, 17 Chesapeake, 64 River Road, 6 Seminole, 60 Lakeshore Drive is currently under construction. None of these houses are listed on phase 1, neither phase 2, neither phase 3. So these are the property owner who did by themselves. And also I was told by Mr. Lisa that, the 100% grant for FEMA is only for the buyouts, not for the elevation. You have to come up with 25%. So why I am paying 25%, which I don't have it. So if FEMA is using their contractor, which is charging outrageous prices, so where I'm gonna bring 25%.
That's the FEMA for elevations.
So how come these people got it when they started on their own?
Because they're using their insurance money did you get money from insurance?
I got it to fix the home, not to elevate the home.
Yeah, but
so you're telling me don't fix the home, just fix the foundation?
No, if you bring receipts showing, have you met with Joanne and Justin with your receipts showing?
Every day, every other day, call, leave message, do emails. Very rare I get the answer back. If my 10 emails are, sorry for cutting you off, 10 emails going, then 1 response is coming. That's the ratio is. So I can understand how faster is process going, and that's why Mayor is so happy for it.
Mr. President, ma'am, it's hard to hear up here. Did you say when you were first speaking that you're being charged for your water and sewer and there's nobody in the house?
Yes.
That's what you did say.
Yes, I was charged, and I brought the bill here to show Mr. Mayor when the first council meeting I attended in a township, and he pulled me in the corner. He said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." Oh, other thing reminds me as people.
Ma'am, I have to cut you off because of time.
I'm sorry?
We're over the 5 minutes. I have to cut you off.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Jasmine, the people who are still out of their homes, clearly they're not using any water and sewer. Are they still being billed?
She's not being billed now. She after she disconnected. After it was disconnected, she hasn't been billed. No, we can't do that.
Sir?
Hi, my name is Arnold German. I live at 10 Puddingstone Road. I'm here also to voice my complaint and feelings about the condition of Puddingstone Road. First, I'd like to thank my neighbor, Richard Green, who made a very passionate and articulate speech about the road. I only have a few items to add to what he said. I've lived in Parsippany. I bought that home in 1986. I don't know if any of you know what that area was like in 1986. It's beautiful now, but it was really spectacular back then. The whole area was very different. You know, Richard talked about the quality of life, and really it's been a disaster there. It's been 10 years, And when they first dug up the road, I thought, you know, this is fine. I could put up with the construction, the dirt, the digging up of the road. I'm going to get sewers. It's going to be fantastic. 10 years later, I've got no sewers. Richard talked about our neighbor across the street who passed away. He lived his last, several years of life talking about how bad the road was and when are they going to fix it, when are they going to fix it, and the man died. I have a 13-year-old daughter. She has no knowledge of having a road that hasn't been torn up. Her whole life, she's 13. Dad, when are they going to fix the road? Dad, I can't rollerblade. Dad, I can't skateboard. What are we going to do? When are they going to fix the road? When are we getting the sewers you talk about, Dad? She doesn't really care about those, but when are they going to fix the road so she can play on the road, ride a bicycle, rollerblade, skateboard? I too called the town several times. Never got a call back. What I get from them were words like, whoever answered the phone, I don't remember her name, I'm not as close to the women as Richard's become. But I hear things like, it's a shame, you poor people, we're working on it, something will be done soon. Something will be done soon, I heard it again tonight. I don't believe you. I don't know when it's going to happen. Late in the fall, we were right about to get it, it's going to be next year, it'll be right after the winter. It's always put off, it's always later and later, and it doesn't happen. That's really all I had to add. Richard covered it beautifully. There are 5 residents of Puddingstone Road here tonight. It's not a very big street. It wouldn't take much to fix it. It's not right. It's just not right, guys. Take care of it. Ladies, thank you.
Good evening, Bob Crawford, 35 Hidden Glen Drive. I had come here tonight with one question for the mayor. I got here a little late. I'm concluding he was here and he left. I assume he must have something more important to do than to listen to the citizens of the town, listen to the citizens that he wants to reelect him. As Mayor Barbario is not here, Mr. Stanton, I'd like to address the question that I would have addressed to Mayor Barbario to Mr. Inglesino, because he appears to be speaking on behalf of the mayor, at least on some cases. So Mr. Inglesino, if you don't want to answer, that's fine. The question is very simple. Should an elected official abide by the spirit of the law as well as by the letter of the law?
I think the question is extremely vague and has no context, so I don't know why you're asking the question or what you seek to apply it to.
I see. So if I ask most other people, even my children, they would say, of course, Dad, any elected official should not hold themselves at a standard which says, I can do this because I'm not breaking the law. They would hold it to the standard of saying, let me interpret the law and act in accordance with the spirit of the law. If, Mr. Inglesino, you find that question unanswerable, that goes a long way then to defining what this administration has become. Thank you.
I don't understand what your context is.
It's a simple question, Mr. Inglesino. It's a very simple question. You're a lawyer, for crying out loud. You think the spirit of the law as well as the letter of the law should be respected? The answer should be yes.
See no one else come forward, I'll entertain a motion to close the public.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Farrar. Second by Mr. Creepy. Roll call.
Mr. Creepy?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, consent agenda. Be resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the Township Council, be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item be removed from the consent agenda, considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion by myself, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Creepy?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Oh, I took the liquor license off the piece.
Oh, you did? Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Ordinances for introduction. Ordinance 2013:11. Mr. Farrar.
An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Thank you, Lee. We need to donate one to the school. An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for various water utility improvements for the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, and appropriating $1,600,000 therefore, and providing for the issuance of $950,000 in the general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to finance the same. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, held on May 14, 2013, and said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at the meeting to be held on June 18, 2013, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon as thereafter, as the matter may be reached at the Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof for being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Motion by Mr. Farrar.
Second.
Second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Ordinance 2013:12. Mr. Creepy.
An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for golf course and recreation utility improvements for the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and appropriating $250,000, therefore, and providing for the issuance of $237,500 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to finance the same. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Creepy, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
One moment. No.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Ordinance 2013:13. Mr. Nelson.
Ordinance 2013:13. An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for various sewer utility improvements for the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and appropriating $4,400,000 therefore, and providing for issuance of $3,325,000 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to finance the same. Be it resolved that the ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013, at 7:30 p.m., prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
I have a question. Jasmine, can we use any of the, instead of bonding, any of the surplus that we have built up for any of this?
The current fund surplus,
Yes.
well, we are already using surplus to, as a revenue.
Okay, but where it says issuance that we're gonna, $3,325,000 in general improvement bonds, are we applying any of our surplus? Was that a higher number, or we're just gonna bond the whole thing?
We're applying surplus to offset the current fund. I think it's,
Let me just interject here, if I may. The purpose of bonding capital improvements for water, sewer, utility, roads, things like that are long-term, is so that you spread out the cost over the years of the life of whatever it is. A road, for instance, is 20 years, that's a 20-year life. That way, all the people who use that road for 20 years, bad example with my friend back here, but for bonding for roads. But the purpose is to spread it out so that everyone who uses the roads for 20 years gets to pay a portion of it through their taxes through that bonding. Sewer, water, and the NOL, the same thing. You spread it out over the life. The bonding companies allow a certain life for different products, and you spread it out, and everybody pays for it. If you use the current fund, then everybody that lives here now is paying that, and someone moves in next year, they're not paying any portion of it because we don't got zoned for it this year.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes, I understand that.
We're actually using $3.4 million in surplus this year to offset the current fund budget, and we're also using, I believe, $1 million in the open space money for park improvements to be applied towards the Smithfield Park project.
Yes.
Mr. Capero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes, ordinance 2013:14, Mr. DiPiero.
Things make a lot of noise. 2013:14, an ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for various capital improvements for the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and appropriating $11,733,700 therefore, and providing for the issuance of $9,624,500 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills to finance the same. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as matter may be reached at the Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes, ordinance 2013:15, Mr. Farrar.
An ordinance amending Chapter 405, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 14, parking prohibited at all times on certain streets of the code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at the meeting to be held on June 18, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon as thereafter, as the matter may be reached at Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interest shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction hereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, ordinance 2013:16. Mr. Greavy.
An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, establishing white-collar salary ranges for 2013. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013, 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon as thereafter, as the matter may be reached at Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Greavy, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, ordinance 2013:17. Mr. Nelson.
Ordinance I need a microphone. Sorry.
Please.
Ordinance 2013:17. An ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, establishing hourly wage ranges for blue-collar employees of the Township of Parsippany from 2011 to 2014. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 14, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached at Town Hall in said Parsippany Town Hall in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Sorry, all.
Yes.
Council President Stanton?
Yes. Resolutions
No.
on non-consent agenda.
Can I just go back to, can I go back to 2013-13?
Okay.
When I responded to Mr. Karifi, I was actually responding on the current fund bond ordinance. For the sewer bond ordinance, we are using $1 million, $75,000 from sewer surplus towards the capital improvements.
Need a roll call for 2013:17.
I thought she did.
We're going to start all over. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, I don't need chopping the mic room. Resolution non-consent agenda or 2013-120. Mr. DiPiero.
Resolution 2013-120, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills approving place-to-place transfer, expansion of premise of plenary retail consumption license, Holiday Inn, reapproved.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero.
Second.
Second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Abstain.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, or 2013-121. Mr. Nelson.
Microphone, please. Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills authoring a person-to-person transfer of plenary retail consumption license for Llewellyn Tavern LLC.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Abstain.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, resolution R 2013-122, Mr. Greavy.
Resolution of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills Township Council authorizing the award of negotiated contracts for the FEMA House Elevation Project Phase 1 to Unique Floors LLC and RGH Enterprises, Inc.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Greavy, second by Mr. Ferrara. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, R 2013-123, Mr. Nelson.
Microphone, please. Resolution of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills Township Council authorizing the award of negotiated contracts for the FEMA House Elevation Project Phase 3 to Unique Floors LLC.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. DePiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, at this time, I'll take the ultimate motion.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by
Second.
Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. Nelson. Roll call.
Oh.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, good night all.